Something is shifting. Tensions are high in the Middle East, oil prices are reacting, power demand is exploding from AI, data centers, and meanwhile, the grid is already strained. And that's the kind of combination that can hit essentials fast, like fuel, food, power, basic supplies. And when those systems get stressed, normal life gets fragile in a hurry. So here's exactly what we're doing right now to prepare and why. And the first place most people go, and rightly so, is food. Now, the obvious answer is stocking up, of course. And if you don't have a well-stocked pantry yet, then that's step one, no question about it. Start with 2 weeks, and that alone puts you ahead of most people. And then build that out for a month, then 2 months, and from there just do what you can. And one thing I'd really emphasize is focusing on foods that don't rely on refrigeration. Because if the power goes out, even temporarily, that freezer full of food can become a liability pretty quickly. So think shelf-stable stuff, canned goods, dry goods, things that store well and don't require constant power to maintain. Here's the thing, storage is a short-term solution, and at some point, if disruptions go long enough, you're going to have to be able to produce food. And that's really where we've been putting a lot of effort lately. Living up here in a northern climate, our growing season is kind of short. So we've had to get creative with how we extend that season. We've already been using a greenhouse for years, but we've basically outgrown it at this point. So this year, we're putting up a much larger greenhouse, and we're setting it up with raised beds so we can control the soil conditions better and get more consistent results. And that alone is going to make a big difference in how much food we can produce and how early and how late into the season that we can grow it. On top of that, we're expanding our berry production quite a bit because we eat a ton of berries and they're one of those things that are expensive and perishable, and you may not always be able to find them in abundance depending on the time of year. So increasing our own supply just makes a lot of sense. But here's where it all starts to connect, because growing more food means that you need more water. And that brings us to the next piece. And as we started building all of this out, food, water, and power, we realized something. These systems all tie together. That's actually why we put together the ultimate off-grid cabin guide. If you want a simple, practical breakdown of how to set this stuff up the right way, you can check it out at thereadylife.com/cabin guide. So when it comes to water, we were already in a pretty good position. We have our own independent water system, but even with that, water is one of those things that you just don't want to cut it close on, especially during dry periods. So one of the upgrades that we made was installing a large cistern. That gives us a buffer when our natural water flow drops, because our water source is a spring. We also went ahead and developed a couple of additional springs on the property that we hadn't fully tapped into before. So now we've got more sources of water and more storage. And one small but really useful addition is that we installed a water level monitor on the cistern, or actually we purchased it. We haven't quite installed it yet, but that's coming soon. And that's going to allow us to track our water trends over time so that instead of guessing, we can see when the levels are dropping, how fast they're dropping, and adjust how we're using water, especially for irrigation during the summer. Because once again, it all ties together. But here's the catch. For most people, and even for us, getting pressurized water into your house or out to your garden usually requires power. And that's where everything really hinges. Power is the kingpin. Most people are just one blackout away from having a serious problem. No water, no refrigeration, no lights, and things can go downhill really fast. In our case, we've been off-grid for about 25 years, so we already have a solar power system, but even then, we recently made some major upgrades. For instance, we increased our battery capacity, switched over to lithium iron phosphate batteries, which are more efficient and longer lasting, and We added more solar panels to help carry us through the darker winter months. But even with all that, systems can fail. So we added a large portable power station as a backup. Now, on its own, the small solar panel that comes with this unit is not going to do much. You know, it's a battery pack, you got to have some way to charge it. And so the little solar panels that come with them don't usually do a whole lot. But in a pinch, I can tie it into our larger solar array and charge it that way. Or even easier, I can charge it with a generator. And that brings us to fuel, because generators are great, but without fuel, they're just dead weight. So for propane, we keep our 1,000-gallon tank topped off every year. Even though we don't use very much propane, having that reserve gives us a lot of flexibility. And then for gasoline, I don't know what it was, but something just told me a few months ago to stock up. Prices were the lowest that I'd seen in a long time. So we picked up a couple 55-gallon drums and drove out to find a non-ethanol fuel station with the cheapest prices and filled them up and treated it with PRIG to keep it stable long term. And that gives us a solid backup for running generators when we need to. But even with all that, we still try to design things so that we don't need power at all if we can avoid it. And heat is the best example of that. We live in a cold climate, so heat is not optional. And for us, wood heat just makes the most sense. It's reliable, it doesn't require electricity, and it's something that you can produce yourself. So having a solid wood supply is really critical. Now, by the end of the winter, like now, our supply is usually getting pretty low. But this year, we're already ahead. We've got next winter's wood stacked up. It just needs to be cut and split. And most of it came right off of our property. And, you know, like we've done in the past, we'll probably go ahead and pull a permit and bring in additional firewood from the National Forest, which, if you've never done that, it's a very cost-effective way to build up your supply. And that's really the mindset behind all of this, is to reduce dependencies wherever you can, build in redundancy, and focus on the essentials, on food, water, power, and heat. And if you want a clear step-by-step way to start building these systems for yourself, check out the Ultimate Off-Grid Cabin Guide at thereadylife.com/cabin guide. It'll help you to simplify the process and avoid the common mistakes that you might experience. So I really appreciate you being here and joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.